Hi everybody, it's Kate Cadillo again, your Photopreneur coach, and welcome to my 2014 Photography and Business Tips blog. Today we are doing element number 11 of the 12 elements of a merit image, and that is technique. So what PPA has to say about technique is the approach used to create the image. Printing, lighting, composing, capture, presentation media, and more are part of the technique applied to the image. So this sounds a little bit like technical excellence, which we touched on early on. And I'm going to warn you now, if you hear what sounds like thunder or screaming in the background, that's just the kids are home from school today. So that's all that is. So anyway, back to technique. So it sounds a little bit like technical excellence. The way I think of the difference between the two is technical excellence for me is more about the physical print itself, whereas technique is more about what went into creating the look that you've got. So rather than going into a bunch of detail on technique, what I want to do is just give you kind of an example of something that goes into the way I do a particular type of photography, and that'll kind of give you an idea of what is meant by technique. So we specialize in family portraits, but one of my favorite kinds of sessions to do are newborn sessions. So when I do a newborn session, there's a lot of things that go into that. First of all, it's a lot longer session than other types, like family sessions take a lot less time than a newborn. There's a calming presence that we want to have in the room. When we've got a brand new little baby, we want to make sure that mom has plenty of time to spend with the baby. If baby gets hungry, we want her to be able to have time to feed the baby, whether that's nursing or whether that's bottle feeding. We want to have that time incorporated in. And then we have particular props and posing that we use for newborns. And you need to really, especially if you're doing newborns, you need to really understand what's safe for the baby. We focus on safety first, always, 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 because that's the absolute most important thing. Getting the best image is not the most important thing in a newborn session. What's most important is that that baby is safe. So we have a lot of things that we do to make sure that that happens. We use a posing puck when we photograph newborns, and we cover that puck with blankets, as well as we use puppy wee-wee pads underneath the blankets, so that the puck, if the baby has an accident, doesn't get the puck wet or dirty. So we've got that down, and then we put the blankets on top, and there's a certain way in which we put the blankets down. There are certain ways in which we pose the newborn for safety and for photographic effect. And there are certain things that we do to help lull baby to sleep. If baby's awake, there are things that we do to make sure that we get images where either baby looks comfortable with his or her eyes open, or we have little tricks that we use, one of which is like covering up the eyes, which we got this from Sandy Putsch. So thank you, Sandy. That's a great tip. Covering up baby's eyes like this, and then quickly moving your hand. And what happens is the baby will close their eyes really quickly because of the bright lights. And so you can get a photo really quickly that looks like baby's asleep, even though he or she is not. So that's a lot of the stuff that goes into the technique. We use a certain aperture to get a certain depth of field depending on the type of pose we're doing. We coordinate colors together in a certain way. We have mom participate in choosing props and blankets and bowls, and we have lots of different things that we use. And that's all part of our technique for newborn photography. So that's kind of an example to give you an idea of this particular element. Think about how you can do it better. Look at your images, and before you go out to create one that you're going to be using for competition, think about, well, what is it about this? What's missing from this image that I could put in that would make it better? What would be a more creative way to do this? What's a more creative technique that I could use to make this image really stand out and have impact? So that's our element number 11, which is technique. And tomorrow we're going to finish out with 12, except we're not really going to finish with 12 because there is a 13th element that we're going to talk about that is not written down, but it is understood in the world of competition. And so we're going to talk about that the day after tomorrow after we finish out element number 12 tomorrow. So I look forward to seeing you guys tomorrow.